Howdy. Thanks for listening to Let the Movie Speak. Before we get started, we'd like to ask a favor of you.
It's a simple favor. If you could just rate and review our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you listen, that might help other ears get into our ecosystem here and hear another episode. Anyway, enjoy the show.
Hello, June. Don't be afraid. It's quite simple. We've had it, and I'd rather jump than fry. After the first 1,000 feet, what's the difference? I shan't know anything anyway. I say, I hope I haven't frightened you.
No, I'm not frightened.
Good girl.
Let the movie speak.
Welcome back, listeners. This is yet another episode of Let the Movie Speak. My name is Travis.
I am yet another Justin.
There's another.
There's many of us,
There's only one.
but I am one of them.
You're the one.
And so are you.
Yeah. Anyway, we're back for another episode in our 40s series. We've seen a bunch of movies from the 40s at this point, Justin, and
So bunches.
so many bunches. But I think I can say with pretty clear confidence, none of them are quite like this movie.
No, and that may be the case until we get to something by David Lynch in the 80s or 90s.
Yeah.
This is a unique movie by definition.
This is a movie.
This is a movie.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we say that, that means it's very good.
Yeah.
Today it means something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is a film by
It is.
definition.
Yes, they made this movie.
It is unique
Yeah.
and light years ahead of its time in some ways.
Yes.
And bonkers.
And
in
just bonkers.
Many other
Yeah,
ways.
It should be a kick in the pants to talk about, I think.
And it's called A Matter of Life and Death.
It is. And it's from 1946. And we got the opportunity to watch it together. And it was a super fun movie to watch together, regardless of anything that may come.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would watch it with friends so that you can say what's happening to each other.
yes.
And your friends can go, don't know.
or they can go, let me tell you.
Right. And if so, please let us know what they tell you. Because we're still trying to figure it out.
Yes. But before we try to peel back the layers on that odd little onion, we're going to get into something that we watched this week. Well, I am just now getting to the home stretch, Justin.
Yes.
I'm gonna start the last episode any day now.
Of
Of
Lost.
It's called
Frasier.
it's the QAnon documentary on HBO Max.
Okay, little less laughs, I've heard.
Yeah, it's called Q Into the Storm, so it's a real bucket of fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to say a lot about it because it is nice and twisty and turny, as something like maybe a true crime documentary might be if you're into that sort of thing. It's a really good piece of film journalism, as far as I can tell, and really well made piece of film. So if you like documentaries, if you're at all befuddled or obsessed with or somewhere in between, not just utterly repelled by the idea of finding out more about what the heck even is QAnon, it's enlightening, for better and for worse.
Okay, so that's a hard recommend.
Yeah, I would just say like like the origins of QAnon, it's hard. You know what I mean? Like hard
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. So you got to kind of gird your loins, be ready for that.
Yeah.
But I do feel like for the most part, the documentarian did his best to handle every piece of it, as dark and disturbing as a lot of it is, with responsible hands. So it's kind of all you can ask for in a documentary.
Yeah.
So if that's kind of the speed that you're at right now, if you want something like that, I would say go for it, man.
Okay.
There's a whole rabbit hole. There's a world of rabbit holes to dive into.
Wow.
What about you? What did you watch?
Well, I didn't need to gird my loins for Mank.
Yes.
The movie released on Netflix starring Gary Oldman about the writer, supposedly, of Citizen Kane.
Yes.
I made it about 30 or 40 minutes into this movie.
I had a very similar experience.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
So I made it at such and such a point and then just stopped and thought, maybe I'll pick that up the next day, and just forgot about it.
Yeah.
Which tells you, and it's not because I was so swamped with other duties in life, but I watched that much and thought, what really happened?
Yeah.
And that it was not really a plot.
Yeah.
Which is tragic to say. I was pretty excited about that movie. We'd both seen the trailer.
The trailer kicks so many butts.
Yeah. And
It's
I mean,
really
it has
good.
Gary Oldman as the lead.
Yeah.
He's not the problem, to
No,
be clear.
no.
He's acting, but I don't know what the stakes are. I have a vague idea.
Is it written by David Fincher or his brother? Because his brother writes for him sometimes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I think the script must be the problem, right? Because it
Yeah.
looks great
It looks beautiful.
and Gary Oldman's amazing. But I did literally the same thing. I think I watched 30, 35 minutes
Yeah.
somewhere closer to Christmas time, closer when it came out. And I just never came back to it.
Yeah.
I didn't feel the need to.
So it's a big bummer because you would think a project like that would have so much potential to be.
How could it be bad?
But
Yeah. I don't even know if it is. It's just
Unfortunately,
boring.
what else have we said that about, Travis? What else have we eaten crow on? I think we watched Watchmen together in the theater when it came out.
Yeah.
And we watched the first scene and thought, "Oh my gosh,
Yes,
this is
please.
going to be amazing."
Yep.
It was not.
Yeah.
And Star Wars, The Force Awakens. Do you remember when
Yes.
that trailer came out?
Oh, that trailer still slaps. Yeah,
and
it's good.
and I believe we might have both said there's no way that's going to be bad.
Or this is exactly what JJ was born to do.
Yeah. Wrong on both counts.
Yeah.
Sadly.
We just lost half of our listeners, but that's fine.
I would like to. Yeah, I mean, and that's unlike maybe some other sections, unfortunately, of our culture. We're not here to berate or to. That's not our philosophy. To speak down.
You're
to,
allowed to like the Force
right.
Awakens.
We welcome dissenting opinion because otherwise a whole field of criticism or talking about art in general is kind of worthless if we can't disagree.
Yeah, what fun would nerdery be if we didn't argue about things?
Yeah.
We were just arguing about Hello Dolly before we hit record.
We were, and that would be a 4-hour episode.
We're not doing it.
So if we have a Hello Dolly episode, I think that's the only way we're going to get there.
I think it needs to be a 4-episode series just on Hello Dolly.
Hello.
Well, let's get into our film of the day here. And as we mentioned before, this is an odd duck.
Quack, quack.
Quack. Yeah. I don't even think this duck says quack. This
It
duck,
says honk.
it was like moo.
Yeah, that's more accurate.
Yeah. I think, I don't know how many times, just to grab water or like pause for just a second. We didn't stop really for any length of time. How many times were we watching this where we just said, what are we watching?
Right.
What is going on?
More than I'd like to count.
Like half a dozen. Yeah.
And any time we pause the movie, we kind of just like try to, or we'd look at each other which is not something we usually do.
No.
But we're both stupefied.
Yeah.
as to-
Wide-eyed. Just.
But to get there, maybe a short overview.
Yeah.
A short plot synopsis.
Where did this thing come from? Director Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger. These two guys worked together on some projects. We actually considered a couple of their other films for the 40 series, Black Narcissus.
Yeah.
And
Red Shoes, I
Red
think.
Shoes, yeah. And there's a lot of crossover here.
And maybe we should have gone with one of those.
I don't know, man. It's I have a feeling they're all going to be weird, right? Like, I don't think...
Yeah.
Anyway, so they directed, written by Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger, writer and director duo, which is not common back then. That's kind of becoming a little bit more in vogue.
Yeah.
Or a little bit more like widely accepted as normal.
Yeah.
And then we have obviously David Niven in the lead role. Kim Hunter, she's sort of the romantic foil. She's the other lead, essentially.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of other people, some of which you've heard. Richard Attenborough is in this as a pilot. And then, I don't know, most of these other names are probably not super well known. But good acting, kind of all around. We'll get into some specifics there. What about reception? I think you know a little bit about how was this received financially, critically?
Financially, it did really well.
Yeah.
At least from the figures I was able to find from the archives. I don't know if you know this, but I have a key that gets me just to the archives of A Matter of Life and Death.
That's real specific.
Yeah.
Have you used it before today?
No, because I didn't know about it.
Okay.
Until you mentioned the Hollow Earth thing earlier in the season.
Yes.
From Godzilla versus Kong. So thankfully I was able to go down to the tunnels and check it out. So it did very well financially. And now, even in our modern day,
yes,
it has been lauded as one of the best, at least British films. The Brits tend to like this film still. And
sure.
It's made it into some top 100 or top 20 lists, etc. by different institutes and people that like movies.
And the only guy we normally care about, Roger Ebert, in 95, gave it 4 out of 5 stars, which is high praise.
That
you don't see a lot of 4s and 5s.
No. He gave it 4 out of 5?
4 out of 5 and 95. So this is a retrospective review, but still 4 out of 5 stars.
Because didn't he go down to 4 stars at some point? That was his max.
Oh, am I wrong? See,
I'm just curious. Maybe
he
Roger
gave it 4 stars.
Okay,
he went down to 4.
I
think a boss.
Yeah,
he's we don't need that 5th star.
We don't need it. You get 4.
That's amazing. Yeah, he has a 4-star review that you can find on his website from 1995. I mean, this is such a blockbustery kind of affair that it's not, we didn't pick Casablanca this season.
Right.
We didn't pick a lot of movies like that. So this is definitely not, I don't think, the biggest moneymaker of this studio's, gambling this year or anything like that.
Sure.
But I think we're going to get into some really interesting territory as far as what the heck happens in this movie.
Right.
We might even be able to answer that on occasion.
Sometimes.
And maybe what it's saying. I think we're going to have quite a bit to say. Should we get there?
Let's go.
And this is what it's saying, which should we?
Good luck.
Let's not start with that question. Let's start with Justin.
What happens?
What happens? Give us the plot.
So, for listeners that don't know, in the 4th decade of the 20th century,
the 4th decade of the 20th century,
there was
my best Orson Welles.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you, Orson. There was an event in world history called World War II. And so this concerns a RAF pilot or navigator, airman or something, played by David Niven, who is a part of a bombing crew.
I think he says he's the master bomber.
He's the master bomber. I don't know why I did Dick Van Dyke again.
Master bomber?
Master bomber? You need your chimney sweep too, sir.
Mary Poppins, master bomber. It's got the same bounce to it.
Let's go fly a plane. So he is flying a plane, and alas, the Nazis have hit it, folks, and it's going down in flames. Everyone on his plane is either dead or has already bailed out. He doesn't have a parachute for whatever reason. Gets on the horn to an American radio operator on the ground who is June. And she talks to him, and he really has every reason to believe he's about to die. And he tells her, I'm going to bail out. I don't want to burn to death. So I'm just going to jump from here, and I'll never know what hit me once I hit the ground or the ocean or whatever's in between there.
That line in there sounds like a trailer pull clip a little bit where he says, like, there's only one twist. I haven't a parachute.
Right.
That seems like it's in the trailer, probably.
Yeah. And so they, as can happen, I suppose, it's not really too ridiculous to think because of the severity of the situation and the emotional vulnerability on both their parts, they profess some kind of love for each other, which I think is more like a love for, just the commonness of humanity. Like, I am sad that you as a person are going to be dead now that I'm talking to, right?
And in his case, probably like, if I'm going to be dead now, if I could just feel love one last time, I don't know how much stock he puts in it in that moment, but it plays out in a certain way.
Because he bails.
He bails.
Through the English fog. Problem number 1, apparently.
Plot device number 1.
And unexpected. And plops down into the sea and washes ashore and is fine.
Yes.
Now, he thinks he's washed ashore into heaven, and he wakes up. Clue number 1 that strange things are afoot. He walks and finds goats.
Goats on the beach.
And then he sees a naked boy playing a flute.
A pan flute.
Pan flute.
Which is a weird Pan reference because goats and a pan flute. I don't know.
It seems like he could be in heaven or just the Greek afterlife or something.
So weird,
right?
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Hey, lad," it's Dick Van Dyke again.
Yeah.
"Hi there, young Master Poppins. Where's Mr. Banks?"
We're just dropping the MP3 in here. This is just a clip from the movie.
And so Chitty Chitty Bang Bang doesn't show up there.
Not yet.
Crossover reference.
Yeah, not yet.
And the boy's like, "What you talking about, mister?" He's also played by Dick Van Dyke.
Yes.
Incredible.
In the role of a century.
Yeah.
He points a building out or like a...
Well, a bomber flies over them.
Yes.
And it's very clear like, oh, I'm in the place that June told me she lived, right? In Britain. And the boy's like, "Look there, mister." And Mr. David Niven doesn't go, "Boy, why are you naked out here with these goats?" He's just like, "Hey, okay, there she is." And he goes running after her. But why? We've had a little bit of time to think about this.
Yeah.
Why is the kid naked watching over the goats?
I only in retrospect am I thinking it has to be a reference to Pan. Like, well, it has to be.
Yes, right? But why? That doesn't... What?
I mean,
he's in real Britain in 1942 or whatever, 45.
Not the weirdest thing in the movie, I don't think.
No, not by far, but it's the first clue. You're in for a different kind of movie.
No, yeah, I definitely wrote down why is he naked.
Yeah.
And there's no other naked person in this movie, so that's what that note is about.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer for you.
It's strange.
The beginning of a trend.
So he catches up with June, and she's like, "Oh my good heavens."
She's Annie from Annie Get Your Gun. Yes. Okay, so, I mean, in general, right? They get back together.
And they fall in love.
And the story plays out with David Niven is contacted by a courier from the afterlife.
Who is a 18th century Frenchman.
And he is like the most flamboyant Frenchman, almost like how we see Thomas Jefferson in Hamilton.
Yeah.
Like ridiculous
it's
caricature.
It's over the top stereotype, for sure.
Yes, for sure. And so we see, this is what you need to know about the movie. We see the world and his kind of middling romance playing out
in color.
With June. And then we see the afterlife in grayscale and black and white. Which is a certain depiction, we'll get there, of the afterlife, a very specific, odd one.
And scary.
And I think ultimately kind of terrifying.
A bummer.
Yeah, and it's kind of the tension between the two. He's supposed to have died, so they're supposed to bring him back. He appeals, and there's going to be this big court hearing at the end, which decides his fate. Does he get to stay on Earth with his love, or does he have to go into the afterlife now?
Right.
So let's talk about, I mean, there are so many weird cul-de-sacs that we could land on here. But I mean, the naked boy with the goat is our first clue. These filmmakers are like, got an idea, put it on the script, put it on the screen. It's going on.
Yeah.
It's going in
now, and to their credit, it's not all just weird wonkiness. What is really weird and cool about this movie, in the first, I think, sense that you... Well, dude, you kind of get the sense from the very beginning when you're just looking at, like, a painting
credits
of the heavens.
Yes.
And it's like, where are we? We're just in outer space.
And the credits before it. Like, the font and the coloring of them look like... I say retro. Like, Technicolor 60s credits.
Yeah.
With a font that is like ahead of its time.
It's not 1946.
It's not script. And then the sequence with the space and the narration over it. I was like, well, first thing I said was, this feels like a Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah.
And then he starts narrating, and it's like the vastness of space. And I was like, what is going on? This is a Twilight Zone episode.
It is largely, this is a 2-hour Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah.
And much better than the Twilight Zone movie.
Oh, I just started watching
Okay,
that.
well, the beginning is very good.
I just started watching
You want to see something scary?
Oh, yeah, I like that part.
That's good.
Yeah, I've gotten through... I'm in the middle of the one where the old people turn young.
Not good.
It's
kick the can.
Yeah, I can't. I got to finish it before we really talk about it.
Yeah.
But I can tell
It's a prophecy about COVID.
as one does.
As one does.
Yes. So what you're getting at is there's some technical stuff in this that is freaking mind blowing.
It doesn't make sense that it came out in 1946. And then it didn't just start being copied immediately after.
It's wild.
Some of this stuff you don't see until the 80s, right?
And that's what I wrote down. I said, this, from the first few shots, this almost feels like it was made in 1980 about World War II.
Yeah.
Because like the stylistic stuff is like, it's like almost, you can't even say this, but it's like post Sergio Leone stuff.
There's close-ups of people's faces
and
that are
it's in
Sergio.
color.
Yes.
So it feels even more modern than other parts of itself and stuff around it. But yeah, like the whole sequence where he's talking to her from the bomber it's serious. If you told me it was filmed in 1990 to look more vintage,
or last year, I'd be like, okay.
Totally believe you.
Because there's that shot where they sweep through the cockpit and kind of the cabin of the aircraft. And it's like, it's not how we sweep through in 1946. It's not just static. I mean, that camera is
or like a camera just
it's
pivoting
like a
on track.
gimbal shot,
Yes,
practically. It's incredible.
And there's a ton of that stuff in here. Like
Yes.
a ton of it. But the opening sequence, it's in color, which is a little bit, in 1946, still not the majority of films.
Right.
And it's really interesting. And I wrote down later, this movie, if any movie deserves Dutch angles,
it's this one.
kind of this.
Yeah.
And they use them to good effect here. And then we get into some more, a little bit more normal looking stuff after that sequence where the story starts to play out. Now, we've seen a little bit of the real world as we know it, right?
Yeah.
With naked boy and goats.
Right.
And as we all know it.
Right.
Doesn't your beach have a naked boy with goats?
And he's playing the pan flute.
Yeah, that's normal.
Oh, hey, Mary Poppins.
Yes, exactly. Okay, let's talk about the courier, the Frenchman.
Let's talk about him. He's played by an Englishman, which is how you know it's a stereotype. I mean, you can know it just by watching it too.
Oh yeah.
But his character's name, I think, is Courier 71.
Conductor 71.
Oh, Conductor 71.
Yeah, but he is a courier. He takes people to and from.
Right, and he takes messages and things too.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's his fault, apparently, that there's some weird editing in this movie. Right? Because not only is there the really cool ahead of its time stuff, there's just some stuff that I think, unfortunately, just doesn't work. Okay? Case in point, when they're at the trial and the defense or the prosecution brings up that it's no fault of his own, meaning the aircraft dude, David Niven.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not borrowed time. It's given time.
It's someone else's fault.
Yes.
And they do a jump cut or just a cut to the courier, and he looks awkwardly away. And then they cut back.
Yeah, that's like an editing boo-boo.
It's an editing boo-boo because I don't know that anyone really did that then, right?
We
figured
timing,
out we figured out the way to streamline it,
and
but there's no sound editing to kind of cover over, so it just feels like an insert shot.
It's not quite fast enough to work.
Yeah, they just go back.
Yeah. What about his portrayal and everything? Because he's really, I got Tim Curry vibes.
Oh, okay.
He's just got very weird
very sensual
energy. And also he's playing it. I mean, there's a lot of fantastical stuff in this movie, but he's playing it almost like a stage part or something.
Yes, larger than life.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
and even that's his presentation. His makeup is different than any other characters in this movie.
Yeah.
I think
it's like porcelain doll nutso.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, which works for the character, I think.
Yeah, he says, "I represent eternity." Just in case there was any question.
I had my doubts.
I do feel like I don't know what you thought, but there's a sequence with his first meeting with David Niven's character Peter. Is that his first meeting? Yeah, is the first meeting where they're in the having
in the woods.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He goes to pour the drinks. It's so Twilight Zone,
and they disappear.
Yeah. in camera, which is really cool.
Yeah.
It's all editing, and it works for that because they're there and then they're not. He pops up, and it's also weird because we've seen him in black and white.
Yeah.
And then he pops up in color, and we see his crazy makeup. We see the flowers around him.
Yeah.
They're referencing smells.
Right.
And I immediately thought, like, this feels like Alice in Wonderland. You know what I mean?
A little bit.
Like
yeah.
he pops up in this garden scenario, and he's also like kind of cheekily trying to trick him to coming back to the afterlife. And so there's a tone about that character that feels like, I don't know, like Cheshire Cat.
Yes. Yeah. Good call. Good call.
Um,
Well, and I did think it was really interesting that this character, his whole problem is his excuse for not bringing Peter to the afterlife when he was supposed to go is
Yeah.
the English fog.
Yeah.
The
I couldn't see you.
He's too apparently the afterlife doesn't have the powers of
Meteorologists.
they're like, it's foggy. I don't know where he went. I lost him. He's
Yes.
still alive.
Yeah, that's a weird choice. They could have thought
Yeah.
of any reason. Like,
And that's what they did.
we tried to catch him, but we couldn't because he was in love.
Right.
Or something.
Right.
You know?
But no, it's the fog. And when that's brought up, I kind of think it's played as a joke. I mean, because it certainly would be more believable in the context of the movie if they'd played it as a straight joke. But I don't really know if it was or not.
Yeah. I think it kind of goes along with another theme, which is the neurologist friend. Okay. What's his character's name? Is he Trubshaw? Bob Trubshaw? Robert Coote?
No, that's the pilot friend, the guy that's bit the dust in the beginning.
Frank Reeves. Dr. Frank Reeves.
Yes.
So he plays a friend of June, Kim Hunter's character, and we kind of talked off mic for a second before. There's a trope, right?
Yeah.
My friend's crazy. I think my friend's crazy. I have a psychiatrist friend. Can you come over and check
Like cat
them?
people.
Like cat people. Yeah, like, and this movie has some weird resemblances to cat people.
So the Twilight Zone feel.
Tonally,
I
especially
think.
the Twilight Zone feel. The difference is an hour almost.
Yeah. Literally.
And, yeah, like 50 minutes to be perfectly, accurate. But anyway, this character, he's a neurologist.
Yes.
Not a psychiatrist.
Right.
So where we typically have, like in a Twilight Zone episode or a serial, if someone's crazy and they have a psychiatrist friend that comes over to do a little kind of, colloquial observation. They're like, come check him out just as a friend, do me a favor. In this case, he's a neurologist. And it's interesting to me that they make the plot choice to have just something meteorological, right? Like the fog, the English fog is what caused him not to be able to brought into the afterlife. It's just like happenstance. It's just something physical. It's just something physical in the way, right? And the whole approach of the neurologist in this is like, he's not psychoanalyzing him ever. He's only ever trying to figure out what is wrong with your brain. Like which part of your brain, not about the mind, right? And there's a specific line of dialogue that's really key in Cat People that sort of plays here, which is, what is that line? It's like when you speak of the
Oh, it's talking about the division between mind and soul.
Yes, that one. They don't even say that in this movie. It's just sort of understood.
It's just all anatomical.
Yeah,
Really.
so that's an interesting dynamic.
Because the opening title card of this movie says something essentially like it's all in the airman's violent imagination, or his imagination, because he's surrounded by violent surroundings.
Right. Like PTSD.
I
stuff.
think they've kind of so I don't know. That's probably better for wrapping it up, but I think it's not. You're kind of left to your own conclusions. I think there is some ambiguity where it's not.
Oh, there's ambiguity.
Well, there's like Lynchian ambiguity where it's like, I don't know what the number 47 means.
Right.
And David's like 36.
And you're like, I get it now.
Got it.
Thank
right.
you
Totally
for clearing that up.
Totally tracking.
Yep.
And somehow it's still entertaining.
Yes.
But I don't know. Ultimately,
Yeah.
if you're supposed to really land on one side or the other of like, yep, the afterlife was that was a real thing and they allowed him some more years, or if he really was having a weird.
It almost doesn't matter, right?
It doesn't.
It's not a movie that's forcing you to. It's not Inception. Does the top fall over? Or does it not fall over?
Right.
It's not like the whole movie leads to that. It's like, I really think they set up the playground and they just had fun playing in it. And
I agree.
You know what I mean? Like I can't describe it other than like there's so many things that are nuts that happen in this movie. And my question is, are they all consistently like thematically helping each other, or are they, this moment would be crazy if we could do this, and then they just do it?
I think it's both.
Yeah,
it's both.
And some of them hang together, and some of them
don't.
Wild.
Because, well, how about like when we're in heaven? It's not heaven, though. They're very careful not to call it heaven.
Yes.
There seems to be a clear intention to make sure that this is a more ecumenical afterlife of sorts.
A more physical one.
It's monochrome,
yes.
I think, for a reason.
Yeah.
Right? The prosecutor who is trying to argue that Peter needs to come to the afterlife.
Yeah, that
I almost said heaven again. He's arguing that nothing is greater than the law. And so I think you kind of see it in this monochrome, black and white kind of thing, because that's how that afterlife works. There's good and there's not even good and evil there. It's just right and wrong.
Right and wrong. Yeah.
And that's it. There's no joy in that place. There's no like peace. There's no real perfection.
No.
So it's bizarre too, because when several pilots or like airmen, Americans come to heaven, I said it again, come to the afterlife,
right?
They
get wings, so it's hard not to.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
We do see wings like on an assembly line,
like plastic wings,
right?
in plastic
like,
wrap.
Sign for these.
Yes.
Like what? But an officer says, he's signing in, because of course they make you sign in up here.
Yes.
And they say, whoever's asking him to sign in, he says, hey, I want officers' quarters, please.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh no, everyone's the same here. Then you see that character and two others go through a room into like their new dwelling.
Right.
And so the first guy walks through the room and says something like, wow, home wasn't anything like this.
Yeah.
And the next guy goes, it was for me. And then the officer walks through and just looks so depressed.
Yeah.
And it's like, what kind of an afterlife is this?
What is happening? Yeah. It's really, if it's trying to say anything, it's trying to say that the afterlife is not better than life.
No, it's different.
It's adjacent.
And you live forever.
And the justice system is worse?
Yes.
It's probably worse.
Not any more just than the one we've got here.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the man of the hour before we get too far.
Peter?
David Niven.
Yeah.
Can I give you my hot take on David Niven?
Oh, hot take. David, are you listening?
Yeah.
From the afterlife?
I don't know if this is a hot take, because I don't think he's Tom Hanks or anything. I don't think everybody's like, don't say a mean thing about David Niven.
Right.
We've seen 3 David Niven movies.
Pink Panther.
For this. And Catherine and Heathcliff. Wuthering Heights.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
Wow. I tried to block that one out.
Yep. Fair enough. So we've seen Wuthering Heights, in which he is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen The Pink Panther, in which he is not...
It's not his fault, but yeah, he's given...
But here's where I'm going.
Oh.
It can't be not his fault every time. And for me, David Niven is not a leading man.
I would agree.
You know what I mean? Like,
I think that's why he's tolerable in the Pink Panther.
And that's the thing, though, right? Like, the whole thing with the Pink Panther was, this is David Niven's movie. No. We bring in Peter Sellers, and he's hilarious. So he's now taking the marketing.
Right.
He's taking the funniest parts of the sequences. And in this, there's no Peter Sellers, but we do have a crazy Frenchman. We have David Niven is serviceable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's a kind of like a serviceable, plug him in.
Yeah.
He does good line readings, but there's not a single point in this movie where, even when he's like on his literal deathbed, sweating, getting pale, dying, calling out for people, it's just like it never gets to a really, really desperately high stakes place.
I agree.
Based on his performance.
Yeah.
He's just like,
he's
fine.
okay.
He's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's fine.
I don't know. Is he incredibly well revered? Is he
I think he's generally looked at as like, I mean, I don't know about Judi Dench status, but like when it comes to British actors, I think every time someone says David Niven, he's like very well respected.
Maybe we haven't seen the David Niven movies that are good.
Maybe.
Is that possible?
Maybe. You know, I'm just saying from my experience with him so far, he plays a supporting character in Wuthering Heights. He plays what is kind of supposed to be the lead in the Pink Panther. Mm-hmm. Again, maybe not his fault that it doesn't really end up It is
Right.
still the lead, though. That's the thing. Is
Yeah.
he has so much more screen time in that movie.
And when I say it's not his fault, I'm trying to be generous.
Yeah.
But even in bad movies, if you're a good actor, you can't.
Yeah.
You either do the Samuel L. Jackson thing,
Yeah.
and you just take a paycheck, and you're like, sure, I'll be in your movie.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bring anything to it, though.
Yes.
You know. Or who's a good example of that, Travis? Where it's not a good movie, they have no right or reason to.
They're
be
way
good,
better than they should be.
But they give a stellar performance anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, how about this? Andy Serkis in Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Oh goodness.
He's in there for 5 minutes, and it's like, can the whole movie be about you, please?
He's amazing.
And then he's gone.
Yeah.
And then Black Panther repeats that error and kills him.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call it murder.
He murders him.
Actual Andy Serkis. They kill Andy Serkis.
Yeah, he's dead now.
It's really dramatic.
Yeah, there was
very
a
sad.
candlelight vigil.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think the central character and the performance, they're easy to kind of fall into the quilt of craziness that this movie really is. Partly because I don't think David Niven like necessarily elevates it,
Right.
and also partly because he's kind of like it's not really his choices that make the difference.
Yeah.
It's not like
Yeah,
a protagonist that like pulls other people along,
Yeah. He doesn't have a lot of agency, really.
and he gets impacted by all the sub
Yeah.
characters more than
Yep.
anything else. So it's kind of a weird movie. You don't really know who to root for. You're just kind of waiting to see.
You're just kind of going along.
Yeah, and to circle back and just say, I enjoyed this.
Yeah, me
like it
too.
was fun to watch, but it was fun to watch in a way that was like almost like watching like a Jackass movie.
Yeah.
What the heck is the next scene going to bring?
Right.
Not a ringing endorsement of Jackass or
Yeah.
anything.
Well,
I'm
speak
just-
for yourself.
in the same way that you literally are like clueless.
Yeah.
When the curtain opens next time, what's going to be behind
Yeah.
it? This movie gives you that. Like,
Absolutely. In spades.
if you, Justin, let me just ask: if you were a third party, no, you didn't watch this movie with me, and we haven't just talked about it for a half hour. What if I asked you? Do you think this movie's needs or includes an extended ping pong sequence?
I would say probably not.
Yeah. Well, guess what? You're in luck.
Oh.
Because it does.
Oh,
And
good.
time freezes with
That's right.
their ping pong paddles in their
Yeah.
hands. A la Twilight Zone. Yeah, and there's some nutso stuff here, man. I think, again, technically, also the motorcycle chase stuff looks amazing.
And when he crashes,
Yeah, it's
he
really
crashes the motorcycle. And it's like a GoPro shot
Yeah.
where his hand, you're like seen from the helmet, and his hand goes out.
I don't even know how they did some of that
I
stuff.
don't know because it was 1946.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like,
AD.
yeah, it makes me want to watch the other stuff that we found of Michael Powell's.
Yeah.
Like a moment of David Niven that is hard to swallow for me is when he like kisses her when she's frozen, and he's supposed to have this single tear moment, and then they collect her tear as evidence.
Yeah. Crocodile tears.
I'm just not buying a minute of that from him. You know what I mean? Maybe Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah.
He can make me buy that tear.
David is not Jimmy.
Yeah. So it's just one of those.
So I think David's strong suit,
Yeah.
as you kind of see in the Pink Panther, and in this movie, I really buy their dialogue in the beginning.
Yes.
Between him, and he's just got that kind of quintessential or stereotypical cheeky British optimism.
Totally.
Like
even at his death.
even
Yes.
dying, like, yep, this sucks, but you know what? I'm going to keep my chin up, and everything's tickety boo.
Tickety boo.
And I'm going down in flames, but I'm not going to let them see me, shake. And so he exceeds it. He excels at delivering that. I believe him as
Yeah.
that character in that moment.
It's like the fast, like
Yeah.
verbal, leaning on his verbal skills
Yeah.
more than any like emotional heft.
Absolutely. Well, the
is
same
good.
thing when the neurologist is interviewing him the first time they meet. They have a super fast repartee. It's like
good. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Everyone's on their A game. And establishes the point I think the story is trying to about those characters. But I agree with you. I don't buy that character. I don't know if that's just an acting problem or a character problem or both.
He has to do a lot. I mean, he has to, like I said, he has to kiss a woman frozen in time that he might see for the last time in eternity. He has to be dying with a brain tumor or something. He has to do all the things. And I just don't think not everybody can do all the things,
Right.
play to your strengths. Right. I think we should probably talk about the latter 20 minutes of this movie because it just goes every place. Like, I mean, we could talk about set pieces for just a second too, right? Like we have some normal set pieces. They do that frozen in time thing, which looks kind of interesting. Again, if you've seen, what is it? Matter of Time or Nick of Time, that Twilight Zone episode with the stopwatch, similar stuff there. But we also see this alternate title of this movie, Stairway to Heaven. And there's this massive like Busby Berkeley looking crazy set piece where it's a marble staircase, but it is also an escalator. Yeah, and it rides them past.
That's a lot of set pieces in this movie. It's like, what if this was a Busby movie, but it's not a musical? Let's use that set piece. And it's like, what? What is that?
Is it all left over from something? Like, and then the courtroom scene is crazy looking
because it's in a galaxy or something. When they zoom out,
a galaxy coliseum, a galaxium.
I don't know.
Yes,
it's bizarre to watch.
Okay, so let's talk about the courtroom scene because it's what this is all. Hoping to build to. I will say, by the time we get there, it takes too long.
Yeah, I'm kind of done.
Like, what was it? Maybe like an hour and 20. And we were like, this is starting to feel a little long in the tooth. There's a lot of redundant exposition dialogue in here. Like, you've made it clear. This is like right after that first scene with the Frenchman. He then tells everything that's happening to June. Like in that moment, he's like, well, this man came to visit me, but then, I'm supposed to be taken back, but there's going to be a hearing. And I don't know, like he just says it all again. It's like, like we don't need to see that.
Right.
Like you could tell it off screen. When they get to the courtroom sequence, I have two questions, and you can do your darndest, Justin, to answer this to me.
Oh boy!
Does this first of all, we have the prosecutors, Abraham Farland, who's real biased against Brits, and there's this. This is the part that's the most disconnected for me because I get that this was all building to a celestial court hearing, right? But really what happens in the last 20 minutes in the courtroom and beyond, when they leave the courtroom, is like, does this become a nature versus nurture movie like story, right? Like he is an American from 1775 and he spends like a long time just saying like, this is why British people are horrible. It's not really what the movie was about.
No, but and then it suddenly becomes that. And so
for a while,
in his defense, the neurologist who has died in a motorcycle accident plays the Revolutionary War hero or martyr a song from 1945 on the radio.
That's great.
That's one of the best parts of the movie, I think, because it's like shibbity bam slam bam. It's kind of a ridiculous song.
I can't understand a word of it, is what the American guy says. Yeah,
right. And he just has this look of like, I'm so disappointed in what my country has become, which is great. Yeah. And so I don't know why any of that's in there though. Like as fun as that moment is, it's like this. It
wasn't all leading to that,
and it all tries to become about like the prosecutor has selected all these jurors who have some kind of beef with the British Empire.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this guy the Japanese haven't forgot about that little incident. It's like, what in the world?
And they go through like 6 of those.
Yeah. And then there is
a Russian guy,
an
Indian guy, yeah.
And when they replace them with Americans. Oof. So they get a Japanase American guy.
I didn't know if we were going here, but please.
It's so bad. Because for everyone else, they just get normal. It's like
orchestral
music.
Score stuff.
Doesn't matter what country they're from, even India. It's like, fine. No. They get to the guy from Japan, and they're like, okay, he's no longer going to be a Japanese citizen. He's going to be a Japanese American guy now.
Like almost exactly that.
It's horrific, it's right?
Heinous.
Because it undercuts totally. If they had just kept the normal music and the guy's like, my name is James Wong, I'm an American citizen, and be like, oh, wow, okay, whatever. So America has changed, you know, for the better. But
it happened, and I think I looked at you and literally said, okay. It's like, that's
it's not cool. It's aged poorly, we'll say.
Oof.
So, but I guess that's a rare instance, unless director has final cut authority and approval, which they very well may have. But
I can't imagine they didn't in this thing.
Based on this, right?
But the studio looks at this and they're like, keep it all. The naked goat boy, all of it.
Imagine that they gave this as a final cut, and they were like, "Hey, we just don't have any music. Bob, we trust you. Go put a score on this sucker."
Little did they know Bob was a racist.
He's like, "Oh yeah, I got something for you.
I got one thing in the Asian drawer, and this is it,
man. It's a bummer.
It's a bummer
because the movie is kind of it doesn't it undercut their whole like it's supposed to be a multi-ethnic, universally racial kind of
so
place.
all of the spectators of the court are broken up into like different periods of time and different and nationalities essentially,
but they're all wearing the same thing. You have like 4 rows of men in like John Owen like theologian garb,
like puritanical looking,
and they all move in unison.
That is horrifying.
It's scary because they do this arm thing.
I can't even remember what line that comes after. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't make sense.
That is David Lynchian because the prosecutor says like, "And what about this?" And then they all just silently put their arms up and then back down. And you're like, we looked at each other in silence, like,
and then they cut away from it.
That's it.
They never speak.
See, that's the kind of thing though, right? The filmmakers have to be like, this means something. It must,
you
right?
would hope so.
Like David Lynch or something. Right. There's a purpose for everything, even if it's capital B bonkers, right? So this America versus England thing takes a while, right?
Yes.
It kind of dominates the last part of the story until the crazy fake ending that is crazy. We both thought, well, by the time you get to this point in the movie, you think it can end at any point,
right?
At any point, they could bow out of that bomber. They could eject themselves with no parachute, and that could be the end.
Yeah.
And so the courtroom scene seems like there's like a question where it's like, well, I think we might have to hear from the girl he may have fallen in love with.
Right.
Cut to the galaxy, a la It's a Wonderful Life. You know what I mean? And then it's like, it looks like it's going to fade to credits, and we're like, okay,
I guess
that was
it's over.
But then the stairway to heaven comes out of the sky, and all of the principal players in the courtroom sequence, they descend into the operation room
in color.
It's insane. Like, it looks crazy. It looks amazing.
It does,
but
right?
Crazy.
Because you don't see anything like that in film, except for David Lynch. If you haven't figured it out, we like David Lynch a bit. But
he has to love this movie.
He has to.
We should ask him.
We should.
Send me a carrier pigeon. Not on Pidgey, though. He's also anti-Pidgey.
You got to watch his weatherman stuff,
yes.
listeners.
Yes.
He gives a daily weather update.
Oh my
I hope
gosh.
he's still doing it. I haven't checked in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Yes. He just tells you the weather and reads a number.
It's great.
Yep.
The number today is 42.
That's all
I know some of you were hoping for that.
All of you who have Twitter, this is all you need on Twitter.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's all you need.
So what's
descend.
the final note here? Because I compared it to another movie, but you tell me how you took the ending.
Really well.
Okay. Went down nice and smooth.
I took the news well, doctor.
Yeah.
Okay, so the judge comes down and they're like, you know what? Permission granted. You can live now, right? Which I didn't really know. I thought they were maybe just going to take her instead.
Well, but that's the question. Okay, they say, I don't understand this. I don't understand this. They say, do you really love him? And she says, yes. Do you love him enough that you would die for him? And she says, of course. And he says, no, don't do that, June. And then the neurologist says, it's imperative that you sacrifice yourself for him right now. So she gets on the stairs, she starts going up, and then it all just, because she said she would, they say it's real love, so fine.
Right.
That's
it,
That's
man.
it.
That's it.
I'm not missing anything.
Nope. I think that's it, sir.
So,
or we're both missing it.
Is it or is it not the ending to Disney's Frozen? Because, right, like, honest, like, the sacrificial
You sacrificed yourself for me?
That's it.
You're my sister.
So then she can unfreeze her.
Yeah.
And there's no consequences to any character decisions because a good thing happened.
But
okay, tell me the difference.
Here's the question. Well, there's not. If that's the interpretation.
Podcast over.
If
this is Frozen. We made our point.
If the afterlife is real,
sure,
and this is all legitimately happening, then yeah, I agree. Okay, but for the title card in the beginning that says this is all in his imagination, and for the surgeon being the same actor that plays the judge.
That's the Twilight Zone thing.
That is what makes me think it is all in his head.
The surgeon pulls off his mask, and it's the same guy who's playing the judge in the Celestial
and
Court.
here's the precedent for that. Because if it's all legit,
yeah.
and as in that means it's all in our world. Of course, like Travis will be
Even
like,
the naked goat boy.
I'll be like, is this legit? And you'll be like, yes, it did happen on Earth.
Yes.
Right? That's usually what people
That's
mean
what I mean.
in the vernacular. So if this all takes place in our world and the afterlife is really just in his brain,
Right.
it doesn't totally answer the question. This still leaves the hole of how did he survive if he fell out, right?
Oh, sure.
Okay. I think there's some precedent for that. I have no idea if this is what the filmmakers have in mind. But there is a guy. This is a real story that you can fact check all over. I think there was even an episode of Mythbusters about this because they tried to recreate this. There was an RAF gunner sergeant named Nicholas Alcamaid who in World War II was flying over Europe somewhere.
Sure.
And his bomber gets blown to bits. He falls. The documents differ on whether it was 18,000 feet or 22,000 feet without a parachute and survives.
Lands in the ocean.
I don't know I think he landed on land. Now, the reason they think that happens is because of some kind of freak thing where one of the other bombers was dropping, exploded.
And like propelled him up.
And it cushioned his fall and brought him down. So this movie...
You're saying the Hollow Earth is real.
I'm saying
King Kong versus
I'm saying I
Godzilla.
talked to Kong about this and he verified it. So, is that how he talks?
I mean, yeah. He is not happy today.
Kong.
I'm Kong. Okay.
Godzilla's being mean.
So you're saying that if this was drawn from some sort of reality, then they're just adding this like fantastical stuff as like a delusion.
Yes.
And it is like a Twilight. It's like what's that? There is a soldier Twilight. It's almost like
Angels
in the outfield.
The 34th is made up of angels or something. You're talking about where he's a bomber guy in the desert by himself, and then at the end they pour the sand out of his shoe in the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something like that.
Man, we love the Twilight Zone.
We do.
The good Twilight Zone.
I kind of even love some of the bad ones.
For a different reason, but
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know, man, because the neurologist gives every possible out. He's
He
like,
does, yeah.
this exists because you're smelling this. Yes, you're hallucinating this. It all adds up to this condition. And it's never refuted. It's never like, oh, that's not possible because of this.
No, he even says when they descend in the staircase, he looks inside of the operation. And he goes, "See, I was right." You know,
Right.
it's like, okay, sure. I mean,
Right.
wouldn't he say that even if he was wrong? Though?
Right, exactly. See, guys? Yeah.
So then this movie, then, if it's saying anything with consistency, it's saying it's really not the spiritual answer.
Right.
Because the afterlife isn't heaven, it's the afterlife.
Right.
It's grayscale.
Yeah.
The reason he didn't die is not because of true love, really. It's because couldn't see him in the fog, just some physical barrier.
Yep.
That's a weird thread, man.
It's bizarre, but it's in keeping with this movie, which maybe, hey, if it's trying to make a point, I think it's that, if, I don't know. Okay. I really don't.
It probably
But
is.
if it is, I think it's saying that just the nonsense of especially human race trying to interact and get through something as cataclysmic as a world war is going to leave uneasy and unclear and vague ambiguities in our lives.
It's because it is all couched in World War II without any, you can't divorce it from that.
Yep.
I mean,
Agreed.
that opening title. Well,
here we are.
This will be fun, I think. I don't. Is it worth your time?
How much time do you have?
Yeah. It's 2 hours of a movie that I guarantee you will not guess what's going to happen next.
Agreed.
I think if we're going to go with our normal key question, this might be one of the hardest movies so far to answer because I thoroughly enjoyed watching this.
Agreed.
Especially with someone else.
Yeah.
You, bud. But I really couldn't tell you right now how often I would rewatch this again.
I don't know. This is one of those movies where if somebody asked me to,
If they brought it up.
right, it'd be like, sure. I'm probably not bringing it up unless they are into like Lynch or something.
Yeah.
You know, if they're like, hey, is there any really weird movies from the
Yes.
40s? Be like,
Yes.
this goes in the top drawer, and that's when I pull out my key for the memorabilia.
Yep.
For a matter of life and death.
You keep it, though.
And Kong's like, oh, not again.
Yes.
Like, you know.
And the goat boy's like,
Hello there.
Yep.
Looking for the memorabilia.
everybody's back. It's a matter of life and death,
Full
too.
circle.
Stairway to Heaven, part
There's a
2.
lady who's sure.
What is that? Did you write that?
So how often would you rewatch it?
I think I could rewatch it again, but I definitely don't. I'm not going to say a year.
No,
I would.
me neither.
I think you might go mentally crazy.
It's unless you're, I could see myself rewatching this, especially if I wanted to maybe kind of that dissect or better try to understand some of the techniques that are employed.
Definitely
to
a
what effect.
Film student could watch this
Yeah.
a few times and write a paper on it.
Yeah.
And if you're like a casual lover of kind of more obscure cinema or like things that are technically nice but weird, like you could
Because
watch
it's
it.
not totally inaccessible.
No.
It's weird, especially for 1946. I can't imagine what like normal people that are just like,
Yeah.
hey, let's go watch this David Niven movie, and then it's like, why is the shadow turning into an American playing a harmonica?
Why are they
Like,
handing out plastic wings?
Why is there really scary music in the background?
Why is
Like,
there a Frenchman stealing his drinks?
Don't know. You know,
Oh, the music. We didn't even talk about the music. All you need to know about the music is it's all the music.
all of it is in there.
All of it's got like regular 40s score.
It's got Tupac.
It's got Tupac, Shakira,
Yeah.
Lady Gaga's.
Yep. Lady Gaga's. Okay.
Not Lady Gaga.
Yeah, it's
That'd be an
got Toots
anachronism.
Thielman.
Toots Thielsman.
Yep.
Yeah. All the guys you know. Anyway, I don't know. This movie was so much. If you want to talk about a movie like we talk about movies on this show, watch the heck out of this.
Yeah,
thing.
you got to put
It's
it on
a
your
wild
list.
ride.
Yes.
I think it might be worth watching again. I
Yeah.
couldn't possibly give you a frequency on it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That is what David Lynch's numbers are for.
That's how often we're supposed to rewatch
Yes,
this.
that'll tell us when we're supposed to watch it
So
again.
bring us home, David. How often should we rewatch this?
73.
Well, we made it, and
We survived it.
Yeah, we're not going to the afterlife yet.
I don't want to go to that afterlife.
Ever. I want to stay far away.
Yes, in the color world.
Hopefully you enjoyed listening to this, and hopefully it gave you an indicator of whether or not you'd ever want to watch this. Next week, we're going to be talking about Bicycle Thieves.
Yes,
How do you feel about that?
It's a movie I've always wanted to see, only
Yeah.
ever heard good things. I think it's going to be a bummer in a good way.
Yeah, agreed. Same here. So we hope you'll join us next time. See ya.
Bye.
Let the movie speak.
How do you know? But it is I who am telling you, my friend. It is I. Your time was up. But they missed you because of your ridiculous English climate. I am French.
But what do you want now?
You, my friend.
What for?
To conduct you
Where to?
to the training center
Training for what?
for another world.
You don't mean...
But, my dear friend, that is just what I do mean.
Hey, since you're still here and still listening, thank you, by the way, we'd like to ask an additional favor of you.
We have social media. It's a thing on the internet. And all you need to do is find us on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook and like and subscribe. I know this is annoying, but we have to ask you because we want more people to hear the show. In addition to that, if you could rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, we would greatly appreciate it. See you next week. Bye.